The evening rush at Boston, Massachusetts, always made the café feel like it was breathing fast, and Emily Carter moved between tables with her usual quiet focus. She balanced plates, refilled coffee, and offered small smiles, even when her feet were numb. She worked 2 shifts now, ever since her dad's medical bills had swallowed what little savings she had. And if anyone watching liked heart-touching stories, they should subscribe to the channel so they never missed moments like this. Most customers barely noticed her, but she didn't mind. People saw only a waitress because that's all they expected to see. No one here knew she had once been accepted into MIT, or that she had dropped out halfway through to take care of her family. No one knew she still coded at night on her old laptop, solving problems for fun the way other people solved puzzles. She kept all of that hidden, like a tiny flame she protected from the wind. That night, a man walked in with a presence sharp enough to silence the room for a second. His name was Alexander Ward, billionaire founder of Dataflow Systems, a tech giant known for security software. Emily recognized him immediately from the news, but she didn't stare. She had famous people walk in before. They usually just wanted privacy, good food, and someone who didn't make a big deal about it. So she simply handed him a menu and a polite smile. Alexander didn't look relaxed. He kept checking his phone, his jaw tight, his brow pulled low. When he finally spoke, his voice snapped without meaning to. "Just black coffee." Emily nodded softly and walked away, choosing not to take the sharp tone personally. She had dealt with worse. Stress came in all shapes, and his looked heavy tonight. She returned with the coffee, setting it gently on his table. He muttered a quiet thank you, but his attention stayed glued to his screen. Numbers were scrolling. Charts flickered red. His face paled. Emily couldn't help noticing the way his fingers trembled slightly as he refreshed the page over and over again. Something was wrong, deeply wrong, and even though she didn't want to invade anyone's privacy, she couldn't ignore the anxiety radiating from him. When he finally exhaled, it sounded like a man drowning. "This can't be happening," he whispered, pressing a hand to his forehead. Emily hesitated before speaking, her voice soft enough not to embarrass him. "Bad day?" she asked. He almost laughed, but it came out broken. "Bad year?" he muttered. "My entire company is under attack. I can't stop." She blinked, surprised he had even answered. "Like a cyber attic?" His head snapped up, eyes sharp. "Yes, a massive breach. Someone triggered a vulnerability in our authentication system. If we can't lock it down, we lose everything. Years of work. Millions of users." Emily felt her heart pinch, not for the billionaire part, but for the human part. She knew what it felt like to watch something important crumble. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "That sounds terrifying." He stared at her, confused that a stranger bothered to care. "It is," he said. "And no one on my team can figure out how the breach got in. Our systems were supposed to be impossible to crack." Emily's breath paused. She knew Dataflow Systems. She had studied their algorithms when she was still at MIT. She knew their structure better than most, but she also knew her place. She was a waitress, and billionaires didn't ask waitresses for solutions. But he looked tired, exhausted, actually, and something in her chest nudged her gently. If it helps," she said quietly, "I used to study computer science a long time ago. I'm sure your team will solve it, but if you want another pair of eyes, maybe I could look?" She almost regretted saying it. It sounded ridiculous the moment it left her mouth. Alexander blinked at her, almost offended at the idea. A billionaire CEO being helped by a waitress? It sounded absurd. But then again, her eyes held something he couldn't name: confidence, clarity, and not a hint of arrogance. "You study computer science?" he asked. Emily nodded. "MIT, before life got in the way." He hesitated. "What makes you think you could see something my engineers missed?" She swallowed, twisting the pen in her apron. "Because sometimes when you're too close to a problem, you stop seeing the obvious parts. And sometimes, people with different lives see things in different ways. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he turned the laptop toward her, almost in desperation. Fine. If you see anything, even one small clue, I'll take it. Emily pulled a chair closer, her heart thudding. She scanned the data streams, the logs, the timestamps. Her brain switched into a mode she hadn't felt in years. The world around her faded. She pointed at a sequence of code. This shouldn't be repeating like this. It looks like an authentication loop that got tricked into spawning itself. Someone used a brute force bypass, but they didn't cover their traces well. Alexander leaned closer, stunned. You saw that in seconds, he whispered. Emily continued, biting her lip. It's not just a breach. It's an internal vulnerability. Someone in your own system created it maybe accidentally months ago. You're not dealing with a hacker. You're dealing with bad code design. Alexander stared at her like she had just rewritten reality. Who are you? He whispered. Emily lowered her eyes. Just a waitress trying to make sure my dad gets his medicine. And that was the moment everything changed. He looked at her again, not as a server, not as a girl in an apron, but as someone whose mind was sharper than most people he had ever worked with. Someone who had just spotted what 3 teams of engineers had missed. Someone whose life had taken a detour she never deserved. And for the first time that night, hope flickered in his eyes. Alexander stared at Emily as if she had just lifted a burning car off the road. His mind ran through every failed meeting, every sleepless night, every engineer panicking without answers. And then here she was, a young woman in a worn apron, standing in a small Boston café, solving the core of the problem in less than 3 minutes. He felt something rare, humility, and something even rarer for a billionaire CEO, gratitude. He slid the laptop fully toward her. Can you show me exactly where the loop starts? He asked. Emily nodded gently and pointed again. Right here. Someone tried to patch a previous bug, but accidentally left a recursive trigger. If you fix this line and rebuild the authentication model, the system will stop auto-replicating the breach. She paused. It might take time, but it's fixable. Alexander exhaled sharply, as if he had been underwater for days and finally found air. For a moment, he didn't speak. He simply watched her, trying to understand how someone with this much talent was wiping tables for a living. Emily, he said quietly, you don't belong here. She fidgeted, not liking the pity in his voice. I belong where I'm needed, she replied softly. Right now, my dad needs me. So, this is where I am. The honesty in her words struck him harder than any business failure ever had. He closed the laptop gently. Come with me, he said. To my office, right now. Emily stiffened. I can't, she said. My shift isn't over. Alexander blinked. Billionaires weren't used to being told no. But she had said it so kindly, so simply, he couldn't even be offended. Emily, he tried again, I need your help. My entire company needs your help. She looked down at her shoes, then back at him. My manager won't like it, she whispered. I'll buy the café if I have to, he blurted without thinking. She laughed softly, really laughed for the first time that night, and shook her head. She approached her manager, who looked confused when she explained the situation. After one glance at Alexander, the manager practically shoved her out the door. Go, he urged. If a billionaire needs you, you don't stick around to refill coffee. Emily grabbed her coat, feeling half excited, half terrified. Alexander walked beside her to his car, a sleek black sedan waiting outside. She'd never been inside anything so expensive. During the ride, the city lights flashed across her face. She kept her hands folded, trying to calm her nerves. Why didn't you finish school? Alexander asked gently. Emily stared out the window. My dad had a heart attack my sophomore year, she said quietly. We lost the house, and he needed care. I was all he had. MIT doesn't wait for you, so I left. He swallowed hard. He wasn't used to people giving up dreams for love. It made him feel small in comparison. When they reached Dataflow Systems headquarters, the security guards stiffened at the sight of Emily beside him. But Alexander waved them off and led her upstairs, past glass walls and frantic engineers. "Everyone," he announced, "this is Emily Carter. She found the vulnerability." The room fell silent. Engineers who had worked for decades stared at her like she was a myth. Emily tried to explain what she found, her voice small but steady. Piece by piece, she pointed out the code loops, the bad patch, and the vulnerabilities they had overlooked. At first, the engineers looked stunned, then humbled, then deeply, deeply impressed. Even the lead developer, a man known for his ego, nodded in respect. "She's right," he said. "She found the root issue." Alexander turned to her, all softening his features. "Emily, would you consider working with us for the next few days? I can pay you, really pay you." Her eyes widened. "I don't know," she whispered. "My life is complicated." He shook his head gently. "Everyone's life is complicated, but talent like yours shouldn't go unnoticed." But Emily wasn't easy to sway. She helped, yes, drawing diagrams, correcting code, explaining a better authentication model. She worked with the team until 3 a.m., saving the company millions in damage. When the crisis finally settled, Alexander ordered everyone to take a break. But Emily simply sat down in one of the office chairs, exhausted yet glowing with purpose. "You were incredible," he said softly. She shrugged. "I just saw something others missed." "No," he corrected. "You saw something only a genius would notice." But when she stood to leave, he followed her. "Emily," he said, "let me do something for you. Let me pay for your dad's treatment. Let me help you finish your degree. Let me give you the future you deserve." Her breath caught. "No," she whispered. Alexander froze. "No? I don't want help because you feel sorry for me," she said gently. "I want a chance, a real chance, one I earn." He slowly nodded, respecting the fire in her words. "Then come work for me," he said. "As a software engineer, full salary, full benefits. No charity, just recognition of your ability." Emily stared at him, overwhelmed. "I don't even have a degree," she murmured. "I don't care," he replied. "I've hired people from Stanford who couldn't do what you did tonight." Emily felt the world tilt beneath her feet. A billionaire, offering her, a waitress, a job that could rewrite her future. But life wasn't simple. She still had bills, responsibilities, and a father depending on her. She didn't give her answer right away. Instead, she asked softly, "Can I think about it?" Alexander nodded. "Take all the time you need, but please, don't underestimate what you're capable of." The next morning, she returned home to her father, who noticed something glowing in her eyes. When she told him everything, tears formed in his. "Emily," he whispered, "I've always known you were meant for more." She held his hand, unsure whether to laugh or cry. "Dad, what if this is the detour that leads me back?" For the next few days, Emily visited the office, helping fine-tune the rebuilt system. Alexander watched her work from a distance, not as a CEO, but as someone witnessing a miracle unfold. He saw her passion, her focus, her kindness, and her brilliance. He saw someone who deserved a stage far bigger than a café. On Friday morning, Emily walked into his office, shoulders squared, eyes bright with decision. "Is the offer still open?" she asked. Alexander stood. "Always." Then she smiled, the kind of smile that carried years of struggle and the beginning of something new. "Then yes," she said softly. "I'll take the job." For a moment, Alexander didn't breathe. Then he shook her hand firmly. Though his voice held emotion, he didn't bother hiding. "Welcome to Dataflow Systems, Emily." And just like that, her life shifted, not because someone rescued her, but because someone finally recognized the genius she had carried all along. A genius she never let die, even when life pushed her into a corner. Her detour had led her exactly where she was meant to be.